your human SDR doesn't perform on day one. So why would you, kind of expect your agent to as well? We're all worried about like, what is human oversight? What is governance? How do we reduce bias? How do we increase accuracy? So we gave Teddy a human manager, and our CRO meets with Teddy weekly and reviews, right? What is he putting out there? Where is he getting stuck? What knowledge do I need to update and reflect? So the more that we coach Teddy, the more successful he gets. And it's a time commitment up front, right? We have to build all of this. We have to take the energy and time just like you would a new employee. And that the ramp sometimes an enterprise for a new employee is a year, right? Small business, it's 6 months. So I think getting our expectations right. And personally, I think you're about to see a lot more stories of success coming because we've all been playing with the technology now for a year that we're starting to learn that this is really a critical step.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech Marketing Rewired. In this episode, I talked to Lauren Esposito, who is the CMO of Asymbl. Lauren has a really interesting background in that she comes from 13 years at Salesforce, where she ran marketing with a team of about 40 people. And when she moved to the CMO role at Asymbl, she had 2 direct reports, at least initially. And so she went from an environment where there was scale and systems and sort of structure around everything, support everywhere, to an environment where she really had to do it all herself. And what her story that we talk about on the podcast leads to is her use of AI and agents to really take a team of 3 and scale it to about what could be done by a team of 40. It's really an amazing conversation where she goes into the very specific tactics on how she decides what she's going to automate and use agents for, how she trains agents like humans, and the results that she's used that have been really phenomenal. I think it's a fascinating conversation for anyone that is interested in leveraging AI for their small team or large team. I'm really excited to get it out there. But before I get started, I wanted to mention that this podcast is sponsored by my company, Mighty and True. Mighty and True is a tech marketing agency that works with CMOs to help them accelerate strategies that might be stuck or stalled because of bandwidth or resource constraints or any other reason. So if you're interested in checking us out, you can go to www.mightyandtrue.com. Okay, that's it. I'm really excited to get into the conversation with Lauren. Let's get to it. This is Tech Marketing Rewired. Okay, Lauren, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks for having me on today, Kevin.
My pleasure. Yeah. Before we get started, I'd love for you to give a little background on yourself, where you've been, and a little bit about Asymbl. It's a really interesting
Uh,
company.
yeah, thank you. Lauren Esposito. I've been a marketer for the last 17 years. I recently joined Asymbl as their chief marketing officer just a few months ago. Prior to that, I spent 13 years in the Salesforce marketing department, doing a span of pretty much everything. And Asymbl, I was really excited for this company. They are carving a new path in the marketplace. So we call ourselves a workforce orchestration company. And what we're really focused on is helping businesses attract, build, design, and manage hybrid workforces of digital and human employees so that they can drive more meaningful business impact faster.
Mm.
And with the craze of AI, this has kind of been a new way of thinking of to include AI as really like an employee in the workforce and not just another piece of technology or tool you're implementing.
Yeah, what a timely product. Unbelievable. Like
Mm.
the need for uh, an easy way to employ this digital workforce is really great. So I love what you guys are doing. I want to start by when we talked on the pre-call that we did a couple weeks ago or so, you made this massive pivot. You were at this giant, and there can't be many enterprises as big as Salesforce, to this smaller team in marketing. I'm sure that was fun, but take me back to the point where you made that transition. Was there like a moment of panic in your mind where you realized like, oh, wait a second, I don't have all this stuff?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know until you kind of jump off the edge. So it was exciting. I think when I was at Salesforce, you're operating with these incredible budgets, global teams, so much speciality, right? I would say I got like the best marketing education, got to work with some of the best marketers and really people across, right, every department in their field. We had specialized roles for everything, and everything also had a process and a gatekeeper,
Mm,
right? And so when I joined and thought about leaving Salesforce and kind of what I wanted to do, I wanted to get closer to the business. I wanted a bigger remit, right? And when Asymbl came, it was the way that they were approaching bringing technology into the workforce. They kind of started their careers in, recruiting and helping with candidate and talent acquisition engagement. And when AI came to the table, said, hey, you really have to think about this in a new way. And their vision was to have every employee to have 30% of their productivity delivered by, right, digital workers
mm,
and AI. And I think that's the hook that got me, because just
mm.
getting my hands on those tools inside of Salesforce was actually quite difficult, right? You have a lot of governance, trust. They're not just like rolling out licensing for everyone. So I couldn't play around, right? And
Yeah,
and kind of augment in the same way that I have now experienced, right? Joining this smaller company. I walked
yeah,
in, I'm a
yeah,
team with two individuals and me. So, scarcity actually became clarity in this. I
yeah,
had to just start by starting and figuring it out, right? I didn't have, the resources. There was no, it was a blank page. And so we want to feel like a company with a brand that's 100 times bigger, right, than we really are, to kind of make waves and show up in this marketplace.
yeah,
And so I just dove in. And now I've been spending so much time in these different tools, understanding how they perform, what information is valuable, which one, their difference, there's nuances, but also understanding the parallels between them of how AI, right, thinks and operates. So now I really can figure out what do I need and why, and then
yeah.
think about how to, orchestrate that into kind of the flow of work for me so that I can do smart marketing, right, at scale, with limited budget, and we're all trying to do more with less, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think if you would have stayed in the enterprise world, do you think you ever would have discovered this digital labor model, or is this something that only this sort of scarcity could have unfolded for you?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think it would have clicked as a user and as a manager. It smaller businesses are where change, right? Management is kind of spurred and happening for sure. I am seeing Salesforce in general start to talk about digital labor as a component now rather than just agent force and AI. So I do, and quite frankly, so is McKinsey, right? Accenture. I mean, a lot of the marketplace is starting to realize that this isn't just an age old, IT implementation. But I think it would have taken a lot longer to see like results, and I don't know that I would have
Hmm,
had as much influence in building it for me, right? As
yeah.
like every individual at Assemble is really empowered to think about this as and we're going to talk, I think, more about, right? This
Mhm.
digital worker is really supporting me as an individual rather than, rolled out for a function or a team or a task.
Yeah, yeah, right on. Yeah, I don't wanna bum people out that are at big companies, but I do think you can think more broadly when you're in a smaller environment, right? You're just because you have to to
Yeah.
some degree. You have more access. Um, I wanna define digital labor a bit because it's a really cool concept. Um, uh, I think there's the using AI tools and there's the employing digital labor, 2 different concepts there. What do you think the functional difference between, like, me using ChatGPT to write something myself or you employing an agent to do it in a digital labor environment? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, I think digital labor, what we're really talking about is the summarization, right, of all of the kind of AI tools out there. So the
Mhm.
predictive, the
Hmm.
generative, right, the agentic, and then the realization that, you know, different tools perform different tasks, right, for you more with different value. But you still, as an individual, don't want to have to be logging in, right, to all of these pieces and functions to be getting different tasks done, right? Where I think scale and operational success comes from is the idea of orchestrating, right, these different tools as a digital worker. And so, it's really thinking about, how can I get the outcomes, right, that I'm trying to drive from these tool sets and do it in the most simple way. So I'm not in the swivel chair logging into things and copy pasting and having to, quite frankly, manage, in chat versus Claude versus Perplex, all the same knowledge sense sent into these custom agents, right? And then now I'm having to maintain and govern, right, from all these different applications. And so, how can I do that at scale, right?
Yeah.
And really have it. And the benefit of this is the technology and the tools are changing so rapidly, right? So as you orchestrate it and think about how you can give knowledge and context, collectively into that flow of work, it doesn't matter if the tools change. It doesn't matter if you want to switch them out, right? Because you're kind of building this with intentionality that says the tools I can plug and play. It's the orchestration, the strategy of how and when and what they have access to that's really going to unlock, right, the value and the ROI for me.
Okay, take me back to when you get there, assemble, you need to like do something in a different way because you've got such a small team. How did you assess what the environment looked like and where you were going to place a bet first, let's say in your first, like what do you do first when you get there in terms of employing a digital worker?
Yeah, it's great. Like every small business,
Hmm.
we jumped right in and realized when I walked in, we had hired a new leadership team. My chief revenue officer joined just a few weeks before me, and so we kind of focused in and said, like, what's the most important job to be done? We have got to unlock our sales capacity,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of marketers, right, can identify that. We just had one human SDR, one human BDR, and two AEs. And then we had thousands of leads that were coming in, and we just couldn't work them. So I'll kind of talk you through, right, the process, which was now a methodology for us, right? We have three phases. It's design, onboard, and coach. So what I learned is stay focused, right? What is that job to be done? We want to unlock, right, that sales capacity. And so when you kind of step into the first phase, you start thinking about, well, the design, right? How do I design a digital worker to do that? And just like you would hire a human employee, we said, well, let's write it a job description, right?
Hmm.
Like, let's think about like what skills does an SDR have? What kind of output, right, and actions is it going to be responsible for? And how are we going to measure it? Like, what is success and KPIs, right, that you would give that individual in their, annual reviews, if you will, right, that we want to assign to the digital worker. And in this, we decided to also name our sales development and representative digital worker. So we called him Theodore Frank, and we call him Teddy for short now.
There's a lot of that
Uh,
going on too. The naming of
yeah,
the worker,
yeah,
the persona, it's good.
exactly. I find a little bit that, human behavior, we don't change that often. So again, what you'll see in this digital worker is it's like it's operating where you operate and you're getting the expectations as if it were another employee. And so being able to reference like Teddy versus SDR agent, it actually just
Totally.
yeah, it levels everything. So once we've got this job description, the next phase was like, okay, we got to onboard, right? Just like what systems does Teddy? We want him to be working leads out of, right, our CRM. We want him to be able to email. He needs an email account, those accounts. We want him to be able to personalize, right? He's going to email these guys a lot. What are the information and inputs that we can pull in so that he can tailor what he knows about the lead, but also like what we have at marketing, what resources and information, right, are important. And then we said, well, if he closes, right, he's able to get us a meeting with one of these contacts, how is he going to inform us? So he's got a Slack account. And so he just actually in our, joint channel for go to market tells us that he's landed a new meeting, right, for one of our human BDRs or SDRs to take. So it's just happening naturally in the flow of work. So it was really thinking about all of the summarization of all of those things and kind of building out that process and flow chart that says, okay, so that's what we desire. And then we layered in, well, now what technology and tools are needed, you know what I mean, to support that. We used Agentforce for the actual agentic SDR, right? But we've got Google Docs of like our voice and our tone and right where all of our marketing resources are stored. We use Google's Notebook LM, right? Kind of as a
Wow.
knowledge center to be pulling from. And then we even have, right, like canvases and Slack and lead scoring and marketing cloud engagement. So all of those things, right, are tied together for Teddy to kind of be the best performer. And then the last step is what we call coaching. And I think that this is a big difference that I don't see a lot of people, actually thinking about today. And it's, your human SDR doesn't perform on day one. So why would you, kind of expect your agent to as well? We're all worried about like, what is human oversight? What is governance? How do we reduce bias? How do we increase accuracy? So we gave Teddy a human manager, and our CRO meets with Teddy weekly and reviews, right? What is he putting out there? Where is he getting stuck? What knowledge do I need
Gosh,
to, right, update and
so
reflect?
smart.
Yeah, and so the longer, right, the more that we coach Teddy, the more successful he gets. And it's a time commitment up front, right? We have to build all of this. We have to take the energy and time just like you would a new employee. And that the ramp sometimes an enterprise for a new employee is a year, right? Small business at 6 months. So I think getting our expectations right. And personally, I think you're about to see a lot more stories of success coming because we've all been playing with the technology now for a year that we're starting to learn that this is really a critical step in the process to see success.
Golly, so smart. I don't think many people are thinking about training, hiring, coaching, and training the the AI SDR like you are. It's just really an interesting way because you're humanizing it to some
Mm.
degree, but you're going through the same process you would with a human, only you have this thing. Did you have most of the raw materials that you needed to train Teddy? Were they already existing, and you just gave those to the AI, or did you have to
Yeah.
create bespoke?
Um, there's kind of two sides to that. One is where I think it just depends on how good you are at your documentation, right? So sure, do we have brand guidelines? Yes. Right. Do we have our lead scoring, right? Defined? Yes. But a lot of nuance, right? Like how we actually wanted to, how would our thought leadership, subject matter experts, right, respond in calls,
Yeah,
and questions. How do we pull those insights from call recording and transcripts, summarize that strategy and feed it right to the AI?
yeah,
But even more so, where do you host it? How do you connect it? Right?
yeah,
We now have our digital workers have a brain, and where this all has been birthed from, right? Because Asymbl actually hired a chief digital labor officer, which is the first time we've ever heard this role. And we
hmm,
realized that, we actually just as much as humans need a workforce strategy and a chief people officer, right? We needed someone who was thinking about how are we going to orchestrate these digital workers at scale and
yeah,
memorialize, right, this knowledge and information for the business. So our chief digital labor officer, Shiv, he is a human. And he, thinks about the architecture, right, and the security, and the deployment of that, and where scale and foundations can be, leveraged. Because a lot of knowledge that marketing has around voice, tone, guidelines, style, best practices, resources is relevant for a lot of individuals' work, not just
yeah.
sales, not just marketing, right? So, you don't want to have to repeat all these steps all the time and be updating them, as I mentioned, in different places. So I would say I credit a lot of our success to being able to, kind of operationalize this to Shiv. And today he's helped us launch, I think we're at 93 digital workers across 10 business functions. And that's driving 5 million in operational savings of folks we didn't have to go hire in just 4 months. So it's pretty crazy.
What's that chief for people that don't have a chief digital labor officer, which not many people do at this point? They probably
Yeah.
have IT.
Yep.
What is that? Where does that person come from? What do they look like?
Great question. I mean, he is such a unicorn, someone that I,
Yeah, yeah,
haven't
yeah, I bet.
ever seen before. And I don't know that every company needs one of these, but Shiv, I mean, first he ran his own, he's a Salesforce MVP, right? So incredibly knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our technology, right, as a Salesforce partner, we're built in that. It's not exclusive where we focus, but he's an innovator. So he's
Yeah.
passionate. He's constantly learning and playing with all the new technology. And he's a previous CEO. So he actually, what
Uh,
I think is IT and CIOs can lack exactly business acumen, right? So the flow of work, the importance of, how things get done, how teams come together, what each department needs and the nuances. He has enough understanding in the business acumen for that to meet us as stakeholders where we're at.
yeah.
And I think the pivot here is, you know, in organizations that probably aren't going to hire a chief digital labor officer. I mean, that's why you can have partners like us, but it is about coming together with your IT team and not just saying,
Yeah.
here's my business requirements, go launch me an agent, and then be frustrated that it's not performing the way you want it to.
Yeah.
You as the business stakeholder have to take accountability, right, for that agent's performance, as you would an
Yeah.
employee. And if
Yeah.
you don't, IT's probably never gonna, you know what I mean, know what you know. The
Yeah.
institutional knowledge of why you think the way you think, where you're, pulling information, what your best practices are, just lives with you, right? And your team and your department over IT.
The other thing you said that was really interesting is that your sales or your CRO, your revenue officer, has to review the work. That I mean, so you've gotten the whole organization to help this new employee, which is the digital worker. Which I think such an interesting concept because most people are thinking building agents. I'm going to build this agent at my desk. It's going to do things for me. It might do things for my organization, but I'm not thinking of it like holistically, like this, and like an employee, let's say. New employee would have a mentor, they'd have training, you would see how they're doing, you'd see where they're weak, you'd help them. It's just really a cool approach. I love it. How's the SDR performing? Like when you look at a human and then you look at your Teddy, how do you compare the performance?
Yeah. The same, right?
Yeah.
So, the difference being, so Teddy today operates at the capacity of 5 SDRs,
Wow.
which is pretty incredible. Now, of course, there are compliance and governance standards that
Yeah.
are, you don't want to just be emailing every contact and spamming, right? So there are some limitations to Teddy's capacity, but he is operating at scale. And um, what we saw was, okay, how right high of a quality of a lead is he bringing in and helping us, right, meet and drive those bookings. Our human SDR, Mitch, actually has now gone on in just 9 months and become an AE. And that's
Hmm.
because Teddy is working over 1,000 leads a week, and the quality he's driving has allowed Mitch to now focus on the human relationship instead of spending all of his time, right, in
Wow.
analyzing if it's the right fit, trying to dig up personalization. What am I going to say in this email? It's like Teddy's like, nope, this lead is ready for you, and Mitch is closing them in record time, right, and elevating his understanding now of the business, his sales strategy and process. So we're kind of seeing in tandem that, Teddy's getting smarter and better and quality's going up. And we keep thinking about what other information, right, can we connect into him to increase that personalization and just monitoring, do we need another SDR?
Yeah.
Where does that look like? But then I think being that oversight also says his performance. Sometimes humans want to talk to a human, and how do we
Yeah.
make sure that there's an option for that, right? That the human's not cut out of the loop. And so, because there's that weekly review, Mitch is also able to go in and maybe pick up, right, some opportunities where Teddy deaded out and wasn't getting engagement, and trying
Mm.
to read for signals there where maybe humans want,
Yeah.
a more relational opportunity.
Yeah, it's really cool. So the part of the ROI story is your human SDR, both making them more effective, but also they may be able to move up into an AE faster because they're getting more at bats with the actual live humans. They're not they're
Exactly.
not just leaving messages and stuff.
And
Um,
we've now
okay.
increased his job satisfaction, right?
Yeah,
And
right. Yeah.
hopefully retaining top talent, right? Which is
Yeah,
also
exactly.
huge. Mhm.
Yeah. Um, you were pretty adamant when we talked before about the agents need to live in not necessarily in the browser tab, but in the places where people actually work. Why is that flow of work so important regarding adoption from your perspective?
Yeah, it's kind of back to that swivel chair, right? I, if I wanted to figure out, how to engage with Teddy, I would want to be able to engage with it just like I would Mitch. And so I would open up my Slack. That's where our entire business
Mm.
operates right today. And so I can do that. I can open up Slack and Teddy's there along with a lot of other agents, and I can fire off a message and ask kind of any range of questions. What leads is he working this week? How is he feeling about the quality? It's not even just a dashboard, right? Of Teddy's performance. It's actual integration into the flow of work. And that removes barriers for me. I don't have to remember where to go, right, to get information. I don't have to have a different login. Same thing with the rest of the sales teams, right? So when Teddy books a meeting, it goes to our group channel and someone can, right, pick up that lead based on the ICP. And it's immediately, you know what I mean? Like we're engaging directly. And I think that adoption comes when human behavior doesn't have to, right, change and pivot dramatically. So figuring out again that's why this orchestration is so important. We joke that like Shiv is even helping, as a conductor in the orchestra, right? All these components and pieces come together so that you can have harmonization, and you want your humans, right, to engage and be faster and feel confident in what they're getting, and not be slowed down.
Can you actually DM? Is it like is Teddy
Yeah.
like an employer you can DM? So I could
Yep.
have a DM conversation, Slack chat going on with Teddy.
Exactly. And I have, like, for example, we've got Casey, the content guardian too, and so any employee that wants to write on behalf of the company,
Mm.
can plug their copy into a DM and say, "Hey, Casey, like, I wanna
What do you think
publish
of
this. What"
this?
Exactly, and Casey will score it. "This is good, it's bad, change this. This is our language. That stat's not externally approved, but you can do this. Suggest, oh, for this audience, maybe tweak it this way." So and I just keep feeding it. "Here's good examples, here's bad," and
It's a great idea.
she just, yeah, keeps
Yeah, it's a
iterating.
great idea. Most people, I think we would use like GPTs or gems or something to do that, but Slack is the place where we work, our teams or whatever, for other customers.
Yep. And it's
Such a great
pulling from that
idea.
GPT. So instead of
Yeah,
everyone having GPT licenses, right? We kind of,
yeah,
I've got one. I'm building that knowledge center, right? Again, through all with Shiv's help, and then every employee gets the access of that,
yeah,
information without having to log
yeah.
into, right, the GPT or the gem.
You kind of mentioned, you kind of alluded to the content side, the concept of digital twinning, and
Mm,
I think you were trying to do it with content and maybe some of your engineers. How do you actually, what type of digital twins do you have now? And how do you actually extract the kind of thumbprint of a subject matter expert and get it into a model so it thinks like a human? Because you can
yeah.
do it where it seems like a robot, but how do you get it to where it's like really human like?
Yeah. It's this reverse psychology on your own brain process, right? Which
Right.
is kind of an interesting, right? I'm going through it right now, right? Casey's great. Here's the brand, voice, and tone, wonderful, right? But what our
Yeah.
engineers are doing, what I'm right kind of going through is saying, like, okay, how can I create a digital worker twin who can think like me, like who can judge right like
Yeah.
me, who knows what sources to trust and where to get information, and why, not just the what decision I would make, but like the reasoning and the why right behind that decision. Why did I choose this example or rephrase that subject line? You know what I mean? Or why is this metric important? And so I have to actually figure out how to document that, right? It's the reasoning behind it. But it's simple, natural language. That's not complex code. That's me saying, right? I trust these sources, right? Because they are tier one publications, right? That are proven. And if things aren't coming from these sources, you know what I mean? I'm not believing, right, that the data is quality. I write this way for this audience because this audience cares about this, and I know that these are the best practices, and so on. And so it is a bit of an investment
Yes.
to,
I was
right,
just thinking that.
document such, right, level of thinking, because this is what's in your brain. So again, we're
Yeah.
trying to create a digital worker brain. The benefit to that is once it's there, I don't have to do it again,
Yeah.
right? So I'm building that institutional knowledge, and now I can just add to it, and then now I can deploy this digital worker. I mean, team of two, every
Yeah.
question that comes in with like, can you help me with this? Or what does marketing think about that? Or hey, can we, this is a project and a new request. Like, how's my brief, right? I can have my digital twin review those things, provide suggestions, right? Augment and just use me as a checkpoint. Or I can tell it, if you don't know, it's okay, right? Come and check in with me first and don't, just go off rogue. And the benefit for businesses in that, is institutional knowledge just used to walk out the door, right? When you lost your employees. And now that's your competitive edge, right? And so I think there's a balance of like, we want to build these brains and these digital twins. And they're never gonna be perfect. They're never going to be an exact replica of me. I'm just trying to get enough of a foundation so that my unique value, which is my strategic thinking, my creative, right, approach, my just experience in general of knowing, how I want to approach things. That's where I can go focus. Let me go solve a complex problem. Let me go think about, this new opportunity and not be bogged down in the reviews or the approvals or the briefs or just the general stuff that's super important, but how can I get my digital twin to offload some of that too?
It's like urgent, but urgent and important, trying to get those 2 things right. How much time
Mm,
do you have to put into a new digital twin
mm.
before you get it working? Because it seems like some people might say, "Ah, I just don't wanna put all this time into this thing." But
Yeah,
then there's the payoff on the back end, and then what's the payoff on the back end in terms of time savings? Could you
yeah,
tell someone, "Look, if you just spend this much time, just spend it, I promise you this is gonna happen on the back end."
yeah. I think that like anything, MVP approach first, right? Like I just need what's the task maybe, right? Or the
Mhm.
specific job that I really want to offload. For me, that was reviewing everyone's content, and giving feedback. Okay, great. So how do I give it the information, right, to do that? Now, it wasn't just reviewing if it was right or wrong. I actually wanted it to improve the quality, right? Make
Mm.
sure that people were
Yeah,
writing with audience in mind and commenting on tension and reference. So now that was another layer. So I did that later, right?
yeah.
And so it's an evolution based on the time you have. I do think that, you know, I, I personally, Casey, the more people that worked with her, or the more people that work with Teddy, the more
Mhm.
insights come of like, Teddy's not responding exactly correctly here. Casey kind of flagged this. I think it's right. Okay, cool. So there is about, I would say, a good 60 or 90-day onboarding period that I'm feeling where you can feel confident in the accuracy, right, of what's coming out, just as people are adopting and using. The time saved for that on me, man, I'm probably already saving 20% of my time, if you imagine, right? All of the content that people are writing and putting out there. I actually had someone just ask me recently, how many digital workers can one human manage? And I thought, well, that's an insightful question, right? And right now I'm kind of feeling like in this early stage, it is taking the same amount of time as it would with a human. Now,
Yeah,
I think that that's gonna decrease because 'cause I'm not dealing with personality and emotions
yeah.
and right? So I don't have to
Turnover.
yeah, right? I don't have to spend but upfront, I am focused on skill, right, quality, and context. So, I do envision that, just me with a team of 2 and all the things that I'm doing, it's this constant trade-off. Do I put the time into building the digital worker?
Yeah.
Do I put the time in just getting stuff out there and moving fast? I'm slowly migrating into, like, build the worker, right, and iterate. So I do think that, you know, I bet it's unlimited the value back we get, You spend 90 days, I'm already saving 20%, and that is, like, scratching the surface, right, of where we're at.
I think they say span of control,
Mm,
but for a good manager is like 6 to 8 people for span. Um, I bet you could do more with that with agents, with digital
right?
workers.
Mhm.
Once you
Mhm.
got them working correctly,
Yeah.
because 'cause they're gonna be more consistent and you're not gonna have any number of HR issues out one day and, issues with
Exactly, right.
relationships and all those type of things. Not saying that not say that to completely replace humans, of course, but it does come with you might be able to get a bigger span of control just because of those things. What
Right, and I'm with you on the replace human side.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's w I don't I it's our human we want human connection,
Yeah.
right? Like,
That's right.
that is very important to us as beings. It might not be as important to capitalism, but I think we're gonna find the balance, right, in those things. And, technology has always created churn, right, for
Yeah.
a workforce, right, and growth, and it's not unusual to see downsizing and layoffs and that. But I do think small and medium-sized businesses are gonna see the opportunity that says you're actually gonna be able to hire more humans to
Yes.
do more strategic
That's right.
work in more meaningful ways because you've, right, saved these operations. It's not that you don't need sales reps or that you
Yeah.
don't need marketers or engineers, or you do, right? But it's just in the capacity of which we're going to show up in that
Yeah.
workforce that's going to
For
evolve.
sure. Um, I don't know if you said it, but what type of agents do you have running now? Give me a few examples. You have the SDR, you've got a content agent. What other agents you have
Yeah,
deployed?
I love it. Our engineers, right? Almost all of them have digital twin agents, right,
It's
that are
great.
up and running. I love our people polyops agents. We have an agent who helps with our recruiting, right, workflow and onboarding and hiring.
Hmm.
When we were going through this growth this last year, with our technology and our recruiter agent, we actually were able to hire 100 people in 100 days, which is just
Same.
wild because that agent was helping with, right, finding candidates, raising the
Hmm.
top ones, scheduling, summarizing, feedback reviews, helping propose, packages, putting out offers. But then as an employee, because I went through that, then I got
Yeah.
hired. My first touch on my day one was actually from Poly People Ops. I signed right into Slack and bam, here is your onboarding. Here's, set up your,
Amazing.
direct
Plus your
payment, all
mindset,
that.
your mindset going into the company was, wow, this place is systems driven and automation driven. And so you had that as the brand for the company, a new employee coming in. It's like you would be able to find really good employees that understand what your mission
Yeah.
is as a
Yeah.
company. It's really
Exactly.
great. Do you
Exactly.
foresee that some of those, well, or maybe the question is, what's your wish of things that you can do that you're not doing now with these agents, like different types of roles? Do you see them taking on more responsibility or actually transacting more than they are now? What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, I think the opportunity is limitless. Like every time I talk with Shiv, he blows my mind with he's
We
like,
can
"You
do
need it?
this.
We'll build it." And I'm like, "Okay, wow." Like, we haven't hit a roadblock yet if he says that that's not possible. So that's a fun space to be in.
Yeah,
And I
for
think,
sure.
you're right, for me, I just keep every day thinking about like, where am I spending my time? And
Hmm.
is that the right way for me and my, role to is that what the company should be paying me for? Is that the best use? Some of it I just need as I'm building a foundation.
Yeah.
I do think that, you're probably using it for podcast talk tracks and follow-ups and even right. So it's this great tool of like summarizing insights and recordings and things of that nature where I struggle is, it's not my first place. I think if you just pop in like write me X, you get a lot of the AI thumbprint right all over it and the formatting, the way it right. And so I think the digital twinning aspect, as I give it more of my knowledge, that I am starting to see its writing is more of my voice or the brand voice and tone,
Yeah.
and I'm getting to that output faster. And now I want it to do the whole workflow. I want you to let's write me the book, the ebook, the blog post, design
Yeah.
me right the
Yeah.
infographic, run it through my SEO and AEO right strategy and optimizations, put
Yeah.
it on the landing page, launch it, make sure the technical right
Yeah.
infrastructure is there to be crawled, and now help me propose right what I'm going to do from a paid side to and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I could really see it becoming a campaign manager, right? Almost in that orchestration, where again, certain humans are overseeing. Yeah, we agree with that. Okay, that's right. No, that targeting, and training the different componentry that's making up that digital workers process.
I agree. I mean, that's really kind of what I see right now is I can use it for content. I can use it to transact a bit, but when I try to get, like, I'll use the podcast, for example, I use it for a lot of prep stuff. course, the Riverside tool allows me to edit the thing real easy. I put it into Wondershare, which is another platform that has AI in it. But when it comes to like transacting in other channels, I really want it to write the YouTube uh, title and description, and actually go through the process of posting it, or maybe show it to me and then actually posting it, or going into LinkedIn and doing the LinkedIn post and showing me. I haven't gotten that yet, like in those platforms. So I wish, I think it will be able to go farther, but it's the transaction piece where I think it's just missing a bit. I don't trust it enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know if you see the same thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that that's the misconception. Like, oh, I'm going to prompt it and it's going to perform. And it's not. And now everyone's like, well, AA, the bubble popped, didn't work, right? Not happening. And in that capacity, right, it's true. So I do think that, we're underestimating the initial lift to drive the quality, right, that we want. And you don't know what that lift is until you actually sit down and try to, like I said, go to that like psychological reverse engineering process. And then you have to decide, well, now structurally, where do I put that information? How do I not lose track of it? How do I make it accessible? And so it's a constant like back and forth. I think that those that are people managers and have had that experience have you go through that learning, right, of how to like build a team and create clarity and roles and process. And so that has been something that when I've seen, individuals who maybe haven't been people leaders yet, right, haven't had to think about, the way to orchestrate some of that. And I think that that's an evolution, right? We are all now managing the digital world. So we all need these like management skills,
Yeah.
which is different. Than maybe what you would have thought in the past,
It's very smart. I mean, even what I just said about trying to get the podcast produced and then launched, that job description for that person, if it was just create the content, would be different than if it was just create the whole pipeline.
Hmm.
So I was thinking through, like, as you were saying that, I was like, I wonder what type of person I would hire to do what I just said to do. And then once that got in my head, I'd be, oh, well, if I was going to build an agent to do that, or technology to do that, I would think about that job description first, and then
Mm-hmm.
I would build the stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good way to frame it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you are well, go ahead. You're going to say
No,
something,
you got
Lauren?
it. No, you're good.
If you were because I know a lot of CMOs or marketing leaders listening to this are like, wow, this sounds great. If you were to tell them where to start from like what they hear here, where would you? And they don't have the digital, they don't have a digital worker. They don't have a partner to help them actually implement this stuff. Where would you say they should start?
Yeah. If wherever if you have access and if you don't have access, just kind of get into the tools and play with them. I think just physically experiencing, how Gemini versus Perplexity versus Claude and what have you, and then getting into, I mean, Gamma is a presentation tool, and you've got Canva, right? It's just understanding the different capabilities. Actually, my pro tip right now too is there's a new platform I was just introduced called that you for free called Prompt Cowboy,
Oh
and
yeah,
you
that's great.
right,
Yeah,
it's so
yeah,
great. And so
it's really
this
good.
was like, oh, I don't now that I can want. So Prompt Cowboy allows you to go in and you say what you want, and then it asks you all these questions and helps you right output a much more strategic prompt
Yeah,
that's going to get
it's
you
the
the output
best.
you want. So that sped me up to now I can take the same prompt, throw them into the different right platforms and see what I
Hmm.
like. Once you start to say, okay, I like the way that this one, is performing, create a custom version for yourself, right? Figure out what that task or that job to be done is and make one. And then just start feeding, right, all of your content into it, or asking to do a research for you, or asking for it to whatever that task is, because you'll quickly see, right? How you can go in and give it feedback and coaching to correct it or increase its knowledge. And that to me was the unlock of like really understanding, oh, I can tell it to do this, right? I can tell it not to do this. I can tell it that this is good and this is bad, and to create containers. I can tell it not to use the broad internet and only to use the information, right, that I gave it to pull that strategy. So it's really a start by starting. Because if you don't understand the capability of the tool and the intricacies of like what prompts and information you give it have in that relationship, it's much harder to now abstract, right, the orchestration of what you may or may not need. And, not to be too salesy here, I do think that there's a lot of value of figuring out as a business where are you already invested, right? What is your CRM? What tools and capabilities are there? Not getting lost on all these features and functionality conversations of like really focus about where your business is and what tools are available to you in that ecosystem first, because now your data's there, that's where action's going to happen. And then you can explore, well, did I need something different, or is this the right answer? But I think a lot of people are getting distracted by so many options instead of actually focusing right where they already are working and investing in there.
I get the question all the time. It's like, what, Kevin, what should I be using? And the first thing I say is, what do you have? Because there's so much
Mm-hmm.
AI being built into the core tools now. Just use those. And then
Mm.
also be out there testing other stuff. But the quickest way to make AI happen is use the stuff you have. Or I love what you said, integrate it with what you have, like a Slack.
Yeah.
It's just a no-brainer. I'm going to do that
Oh,
in my
I
business,
can't wait
like
to hear how it
immediately.
goes for you.
I cannot wait to have our team listen to this one because it's such a great idea. Okay, so this has been fantastic, and I could talk to you for another hour, but I don't want to keep you. But I'm gonna go through a portion of this called AI roulette. It's just a question that I'll have a gem in Gemini. I just transitioned all this to Gemini from Perplexity, not to be talking down to
Testing those
Perplexities.
tools out.
So
Yep.
it's pretty good. Perplexity's good, but can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So I've loaded in. I have this little gem here. I put some custom instructions. This has never been tested live before. This is a brand new one, so I don't know how it's going to work. I did a couple tests this morning, but so I just basically want it to give us a question. I just put your company name in and your LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to hit send here. Let's see what it gives us. It does pretty quick. It goes pretty quick. I love this in Gemini, the how you can see it think.
Right.
And all the tools do this now, but it's pretty cool. When I did it earlier this morning, it thought you worked at Foursquare. I was like, what? Where'd that come from?
Interesting. Right? You
Yeah, I was
see?
like, what is that? What's happening? So I had to retrain
Maybe
it
one
and
day I checked in on Foursquare, right? And it's
yeah,
still
right,
crawling
exactly.
around on the internet.
Yeah, back in the whatever, or
Right.
late
Early
90s or whatever it
2000s.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah, early
exactly.
2000s. Okay. You built your reputation with Salesforce Ohana, or you were part of, I
Mm.
guess, Ohana. You were in that culture, an ecosystem defined by intense focus on human connection. Yet, Assembl's core mission is to normalize a 40% digital workforce. At what point does the ruthless efficiency you're now selling inevitably cannibalize the community culture you made successful? Interesting. I don't. Tell me what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, you tell me. The way I read this is sort of that human versus agent, right? Tension, and that Ohana community, right? And
Mm,
that we as human beings and quite frankly consumers, it's important, right, to have the right partners, the right tools, but also the right customers and prospects and relationships in place.
mhm.
And I think that that's, probably where the Salesforce Ohana, right,
Yeah.
style comes from versus now the cannibalization that
I
says, where's
also think that
community headed?
it was kind of hard. Ruthless efficiency. I mean, come on, what,
Yeah,
Gemini? It's not. We didn't. There's nothing ruthless in anything you're saying. So it's
I
great. It's
appreciate that,
yeah, no, it's not
uh,
ruthless efficiency. In
they're
fact, it's empowering. Right? It's like you're empowering the human side of things. So I'm sorry not to
yeah,
answer it for you.
yeah. Well, and I, I don't know where we're headed, right? The tools today definitely aren't replacing us, but I'm
Nope.
there's enough speculation about what happens when certain things are unlocked, and I can empathize with that. So I
Yeah.
try, just as a being, I'm a pretty good, optimist and realist balance. And I think that finding the excitement, I mean, I've got my father, you know what I mean, using AI tools, right? And he's having fun with it, making illustrative photos of the family. So it's here, totally abandoning it. Like it's gonna stay, it's gonna evolve. And we have now the opportunity to say, well, how can it enhance and elevate us, right? To do the things that are meaningful and important,
Yeah.
and the challenge of that. So I agree. I don't think it's I hope that it ends up being cannibalization in a way that we wanted it, to offload it and support us in those ways. But it actually is unlocking us with the potential. And you just sometimes you're so focused on doing what is on your plate and trying to manage to get to the next task. And it's so hard to feel like you accomplished and you're checking things off the list that you can't actually think about what could this unlock. It's not until you do it, and invest in it that you feel like, oh, I have breathing room now, and where can I apply that? And so I don't know if we have the answers,
Yeah, I
until we're
think it's
there.
actually gonna make us more human because
Mm.
if we can take all the other stuff out of the way, like you and your company are doing, where you're helping people not do the stuff that they didn't want to do maybe to begin with and make their current human life better, thinking different ways, more creative, faster access to things. I just think it's gonna be a good future, not there's this I read in one of the newsletters I get this, and I'll post it in the show notes here. There's this research organization that has two futures of AI, and it only goes out to like 2030, I think. I don't know if you know about this, but you can read either one of them. And one is a completely dystopic, horrible end to everything, and the other is pretty good. It's pretty good for all of us. And everything they predicted up to this point, up to 2025, has been pretty accurate. Like the exact timing of things. They've been doing this for, I guess, the last 3 or 4 years. But I read it and I was like, I chose the right column, not the left column, because the left column was not good. It's robotic future and not good. So
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be a good future, not a bad future.
good. I'm on that bandwagon for sure.
So it's been great talking to you, Lauren. I really think people will get a lot from this. How can people reach you if they want to talk more and learn more about Assemble too?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always reach out to me on my LinkedIn, Lauren Esposito, and you'll see me under Asymbl. And hit us up on our website. We've got a great contact us page, and you can easily schedule time with one of our experts, or just let me know in the DMs. And, we'd be happy to kind of share what's going on. Our website has our playbook and some of the success stories and use cases that I shared today. So, plenty of free information out there for anyone who's interested.
Thank you so much. People are going to get a lot from this. I appreciate it, Lauren.
Thank you, Kevin. I really enjoyed it.
Okay,
Appreciate
take
having
care.
me on.
Bye.